Hey, folks. Today's episode is sponsored by one of my favorite sponsors, sunsetlakesebede.com. And right now, they are doing their special annual Black Friday sale. It lasts until November 26th at 11:59 p.m. East. So that's next Sunday at 11:59 p.m. East. All of their products, every single one of them, 30% off with the coupon code BF. Folks, this is your time to try out things like their different tinctures. They have all sorts of different strengths on that tinctures. They have 3 different flavors on the tinctures. They have some with melatonin. Try it out. See if it helps. Helps you sleep, helps you relax. They also have different smokables. They have keef. They have pre-rolls. They have flour. You've always wondered, what happens if I mix this with some other things? Believe me, it's called the entourage effect. Try that out. 30% off. Also, this is the time for you to try some of their gummies. They have they've brought back their new Vibe gummies. 1 milligram of THC, 30 milligram of CBD. They also have their melatonin gummies. They have their sour gummies. And here's the thing. Orders over $125 will get to choose one free 20-count jar of gummies. So you can get the sleep or the vibes or the sour. Check those out. Also, orders over $250 will also receive a free Sunset Lake CBD beanie just in time for winter. And here's the best part. Well, arguably the best part. 30% off is a pretty good part too. But 5% of all of their proceeds from the coupon code BF is going to go to Planned Parenthood, registered 501c3 that provides reproductive health care services, sex education, information to millions worldwide. This is obviously hugely important as the attack on abortion by the right wing in this country. And we at the Majority Report, we're going to match that 5%. So go check out all of their different products. They're a great company, movement partners. They've donated thousands and thousands of dollars to things like strike funds and carceral reform and refugee resettlement and food pantries. They have great business practices. They have great farming practices. No pesticides in any of their products. They use integrated pest management. Check it out. All products on sunsetlakesebede.com, 30% off with the coupon code BF. And this sale ends on November 26th. It's the biggest of the year. So now is the time to go try out products you've always wondered about. sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the coupon code BF. And now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, November 17th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Heather Parton, columnist at salon.com, proprietor of the Uber blog, Hullabaloo, will be here to wrap up the week for us. Meanwhile, Biden signs the continuing resolution passed by majority of Democrats in the House and the Senate over the past couple of days. Israel basically blacks out Gaza again, while the UN warns of mass starvation in Gaza. And after the Al-Shifa raid presents very little evidence of a command center, Israel signals it will now attack southern Gaza, where we have at least 1.6 million internal refugees, in addition to the other million that were already there, or 800,000 that were already there. UAW approves contracts at the big three car manufacturers. The GM one was a little bit of a struggle, but they've approved it. George Santos says he won't seek a re-election after the ethics committee basically says he's an incredibly impressive crook. Georgia DA sees the Trump trial running into 2025, and Trump's Florida judge sees that documents case being pushed back further. Pentagon fails its sixth audit in a row. Well done. Supreme Court will not allow Florida to enforce its anti-drag law during its appeal. And FBI raids the home of yet another Eric Adams aide and a ex-Turkish airline official. Biden removes Chinese sanctions, seeking more fentanyl help. And Twitter is losing some more advertisers over Elon Musk's Nazi coziness. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, folks. Sorry about yesterday. As you know, on Thursdays, I'm off doing errands and administrative stuff and all sorts of other type of things. Emma is usually here, but she had what really appears to be food poisoning because she has no other symptoms. But we decided that while it probably would have made for a very good YouTube clip, the rest of the show would have been very problematic had she attempted to host. So she's doing fine and just resting up. She'll be back on Monday. No probs whatsoever. Thanks for joining us. We will get to the Elon Musk stuff, of course. And the George Santos stuff is pretty impressive. But just one word about Eric Adams. The FBI has his cell phone, and they've now raided the homes of at least a couple of his fundraisers and advisors, and now the home of an ex-Turkish Airlines pilot. And we've shown clips of Eric Adams in a Turkish film, and he was apparently looking to get help for the Turkish embassy. I'm sure a lot of people are the guy was a Brooklyn borough chief. What? There maybe is there a huge Turkish population in Brooklyn? I'm sure there's a huge population of just about everybody in Brooklyn. But this definitely has a quality to it of if one kid, I noticed this in my kids' elementary school. If one kid's going to a camp, all of a sudden this camp gets this random camp in Pennsylvania gets really popular with kids from Brooklyn. And it's because one family went there and they just told another family, and then it just goes on and on and on. It's quite clear that somebody involved with Turkey said, we got somebody here who's going to help us. I'm sure out of the goodness of his heart, but maybe some people might speculate it had to do with an exchange of money. And then they just spread the word through Turkish circles. Hey, if you ever need anything fixed,
business,
in Brooklyn or in New York, this is the guy you go to. It's really starting to shape up like this. Honestly, somebody please let me know if there's some type of trade sports where I can get involved in voting, betting on the over-under on Eric Adams' length, whether he serves his term out. I find it hard to believe he will, but let's go to this. the latest report in terms of the Israeli aid raid on the Al Shifa hospital, there were, according to Al Jazeera, over 20 people died last night in the ICU. There are about 650 patients there, thousands others who were there seeking refuge under the belief that maybe a hospital would be safe. Israel has claimed that there is some type of command center there. They called it the Metro, supposedly, because there's so much.
I mean, there's reporting that when Israel controlled that hospital in the 90s, they...
Well, let's put up this tweet. We actually have a tweet which has a paragraph from a Tablet magazine article from 2014. The Israelis are so sure about, this is 2014, about the Hamas bunker, however, not because they're trying to score propaganda points or because it's been repeatedly mentioned in passing by Western reporters, but because they built it. Back in 1983, when Israel still ruled Gaza, they built a secure underground operating room and tunnel network beneath Shifa's hospital, which is one among several reasons why Israeli security sources are so sure that there's a main Hamas command bunker in or around the large cement basement beneath the building of number 2 of the hospital, where reporters are obviously prohibited from entering. So they built this. Now, why they built this, I don't know, frankly. My understanding is that you are a horrible anti-human entity if you build these type of bunkers underneath the hospital. But be that as it may, they have not gone down into these tunnels, is my understanding, because they are afraid of booby traps. The stuff that they found up in the hospital itself was ridiculously light, particularly in terms of like American eyes. There are, any random home in half the states in this country.
Las Vegas guys are like, that's it.
Have arsenals like this. So there could, in fact, be, bunkers underneath there. Unclear why they are now not allowing anybody to leave the hospital. They supposedly brought in incubators. Doctors in the hospital said, we don't need incubators. We need electricity. We need generators. We need fuel. Here is Joe Biden, however, trying to justify the attack on Al-Shifa and accidentally admitting what many have been claiming since day one of the Gaza bombing, that specifically it has been non-targeted, non-protective of citizens, but rather indiscriminate. Joe Biden's words, not my words.
We did discuss this, by the way, but we can't let it get out of control. Here's the situation. You have a circumstance where the first war crime is being committed by Hamas by having their headquarters, their military, hidden under a hospital. And that's a fact. That's what's happened. Israel did not go in with large number of troops, did not raid, did not rush everything down. They've gone in, and they've gone in with their soldiers carrying weapons or guns. They were told, let me be precise. We've discussed the need for them to be incredibly careful. You have a circumstance where you know there is a fair number of Hamas terrorists. Hamas has already said publicly that they plan on attacking Israel again, like they did before, do everything cutting babies' heads off to burning women and children alive. And so the idea that they're going to just stop and not do anything is not realistic. This is not the carpet bombing. This is a different thing. They're going through these tunnels. They're going in the hospital. And if you notice, I was mildly preoccupied today. I apologize. I didn't see everything. But what I did see, whether I haven't had it confirmed yet, I am asked my team to answer the question. But what happened is they're also bringing in incubators. We're bringing in other means to help the people in the hospital. And they've given the doctors and, I'm told, the doctors and nurses and personnel an opportunity to get out of harm's way. So this is a different story than I believe what was occurring before with indiscriminate bombing.
Okay. So this is a different story than what I believed in the indiscriminate bombing that was taking place before. And then he mentioned carpet bombing. We give him the benefit of the doubt. He's just talking about carpet bombing in general, not the carpet bombing that we actually saw take place there. I mean, the images are horrible. There's a reason why we are now at, what is it, 70% of the American public is calling for our government to provide a ceasefire. The numbers for Democrats are even higher, obviously. I'm sure we will hear from the popularists that this is the what the administration should be pursuing at this point. We will talk with Digby about, in part, about how this is really, I mean, the implications for Biden's reelection chances, obviously, and in terms of what it's doing in terms of the Democratic Party and the $100 million that apparently minimum is going to be deployed by AIPAC to attack, maybe the half dozen to a dozen squad members. But we will talk to Heather about that in a moment, among other things. First, I know you care about politics, and if you like our show, I think you're going to like Future Hindsight. You know, often we feel hopeless and powerless, like we can't do anything to change the status quo. But what if you could be a strategic player in politics? On Future Hindsight, Mila Atmos shows you just how much power you have and how to use it. Think about it this way. If each of us could just do 2% more than we're doing now, it would transform our democracy. So tune in every Thursday to get engaged and stay engaged. This week, Mila speaks with Theta Scotchbowl about unions. Learn how unions are true laboratories of democracy and why their demise has eroded our democratic culture. Truly a fascinating conversation. Scotchball is a really interesting academic. I think we've had her on in the past. Always worth checking her out. You can find them at futurehindsight.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, we are coming up on the holiday season. Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa. Gifts are a huge part of Kwanzaa. Nevertheless, what are you going to buy someone for a gift? Well, why not do something that's going to radically change their lives? With over 100,000 five-star reviews, you can see why millions of real pooping human beings already love Hello Tushy Bidet. Every Hello Tushy Bidet attachment comes with a 30-day risk-free guarantee and a 12-month warranty. I'm not kidding. I know a bidet does not seem like the classic holiday gift, but I'm telling you, they will think of you every day of the year, and they will thank you. They will thank you. Honestly, I think like you give somebody a bidet, and it's going to take them 3 months before they stop thanking you. It will change your life. Hello Tushy Bidet's a fresh stream of water cleans your bum 2 times better than wiping. It makes sense, right? You get dirt on your hands. You don't wipe it with a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what you're using in terms of wipes. It's just not as efficient. Using a Hello Tushy Bidet also prevents poo particles from spreading to your hands and everything you touch. Because by the time you go down there and pat it dry with just 20% of the toilet paper you use now, so it's good for the world, frankly, there's nothing left because the water has cleaned you out. And here's the best part. This Hello Tushy bidet attachment requires no electricity, no additional plumbing. If you know how to change out your toilet seat, you can put this on. Honestly, like it's the best upgrade. They say like you redo your bathroom, you can sell your house or your apartment for that much more money. I'm telling you something. Forget it. Own, rent, doesn't matter. This is the best upgrade you can do for your bathroom. Take care of yourself from the bottom up this holiday season. Visit hellotushy.com/majority. Use the promo code majority, 10% off your first order. Don't miss out on their spend and get event going on now through November 18th. That's one more day. That's hellotushy.com/majority. All right, quick break. Be right back with Heather Parton, as you may know her, Digby. We are back. Oh. There you go. I forgot. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Always a pleasure to welcome back to the program Heather Digby Parton, the proprietor of the blog Hullabaloo. Also, I should mention that Emma is out today, a little bit under the weather. She'll be back on Monday. No big issues. Heather, welcome back to the program. I was just thinking
Thanks
today,
for having me.
Hullabaloo, we must be getting very close to like what, the 21st? I mean, certainly the
21st. We're coming up on the 21st.
21st anniversary. I can't believe we missed the 20th anniversary. When was
Yeah,
that?
it was just this year. It was last January when I started.
Oh, it was in January.
Yeah,
Okay.
January,
yeah. I had forgotten about that. We're getting up on the 20th anniversary of this show. I mean, arguably the 20th anniversary was in February. The first one took place on a community radio show, but as a ongoing venture.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't actually. We have been reading you for 21 years about, I mean, as well as your comments, I guess, when you were at Atrios. But
yeah.
All right, well, let's get into this. I don't know. I guess let's just start a little bit with Donald Trump. And we mentioned this week in terms of Project 2025, which is a document put out by the Heritage Foundation that walks through sort of all the things that should take place more or less on day one or moving forward. Many of which he had already done, but what it really talks about, in including to like suspending posse comitatus, what it also talks about is the professionalization of this. Like the first Trump administration was sort of like amateurs going about their authoritarianism and the fascism, but it really does feel like now we're ready to come back and do this competently. I know you wrote about this and his sort of like his upping the rhetoric. Talk about what you think is happening in that accord.
Well, I think Trump, I don't know about him personally, because I don't know, Trump's about Trump. I mean, he cares about himself, and his agenda is retribution. It's revenge. He's going for payback. That's what he's doing. And that will be it. He wants to restore the luster of his reputation as the biggest winner that history has ever known, the reputation that he made. However, he's gathered around him now people who actually have other agendas and who are there to actually do something. And they've now understand the instrument that is Donald Trump to get that done. And that is not just, I mean, yes, there are the people around him like Stephen Miller and, Jason Miller and Boris Epstein and, the crew that we're familiar with. But now the whole institutional foundation of the Republican Party is behind this now. They have now decided, and I wouldn't base it, I'm sure K Street is there too, although we haven't heard a lot about that. But I have no doubt that they're involved in this to some degree. The think tanks are where we're talking, Heritage being the number one seems to be putting together this, Agenda 2025. And there are several aspects to that. One of the biggest ones is that the professionalization of that is just that. They are putting this in the hands of people who are preparing to implement their plans. It's not just, we're going to put out a white paper and, this is what we want to do. They're actually getting the steps in place to do it. And what they want to do, of course, and I'm sure people have heard about this, what they want to do is find a way to fire civil service employees, get rid of anybody who is not a full-fledged Trump follower, and turn the entire executive branch into essentially a patronage operation, where it's just, these are jobs for you, the good Trump people, you will go in there and do that. And of course, that fits the agenda of the Republicans' longstanding agenda of basically, drowning the government in a bathtub, as Grover Norquist used to say. So, they had.
It's funny that you mentioned Grover Norquist, because I remember he was one of the few people who were as explicit about this in the run up to the 2016 election, which was, I don't care who it is. We just need somebody to be able to sign the legislation.
So somebody who can hold a pen in their hands. That's all he said.
And what we have moved, though, from I think the legislative branch of the Republican Party understood the value of Trump in that respect. But now there is we're coming in and we're doing all of to the extent that we have our version of civil servants, because that's almost like an anathema to the Republican Party. They don't want there to be civil servants, no. but they do have, people who are expertise at bureaucrats, right? Like, I can't remember his name from Oklahoma now, but the first FDA or EPA chief, Scott, what's his name?
What's his name?
His experience was all in suing Scott Pruitt. His experience was all in suing the EPA to inhibit the EPA's power, and then he became head of the EPA. They're getting people in like that who are familiar with the workings of government, who can come in and really fully accomplish the deconstruction of the administrative state.
That's right. I mean, that the deconstruction of the administrative state, of course, was a Steve Bannon thing. And, you can't really underrate that guy's influence here. I mean, he seems like he's sort of a gadfly out there podcasting all day, and he is. And he is a gadfly in many ways. But a lot of this sort of, intellectual underpinning of this, chaos agenda of his is coming to fruition within the Republican Party. And, you have to really understand, this isn't Trump anymore, really. I mean, this is now the Republican Party. This is their institutional infrastructure is now putting itself to the task of accomplishing what it always wanted to accomplish through this new method, this MAGA method of doing it. And, it's extremely disturbing. However, let me just point one thing out. And I think I may have mentioned this to you before, but I'll say it again because I think it's important to remember this. During the Iraq War, you remember the coalitional provisional government?
Yes.
Provisional authority. They were going to send in, the whole idea is that we're going to remove the whole governing structure of Iraq. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in new people who are going to create this beautiful Jeffersonian democracy in Iraq. And we're going to help them. Remember, they were always spouting that stuff. That was the whole neocon vibe,
Yep.
remember, was just, we're not hurting these people. We're making their lives better. We really are. I mean, the dead, it's a shame, but, really in the end, they'll thank us for it. And they demanded that the Iraqis thank them for it. So they sent in all these people into to man the CPA, to start up everything from, new infrastructure projects to a new government to a new stock market. They had everything that they were going to do all this. Well, I know anybody who's, been around for the last 20 years remembers that it was a complete and utter disaster. It was a total debacle. They ended up sort of, huddling in, like 2 or 3 Quonset huts in the middle of the green zone in the middle of Baghdad, and never really got anything done, and it ended up being just a complete bust.
And it was all like 22-year-old interns.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Right.
It was the heritage. It turned out nobody could figure out how they could go so wrong, right? I mean, come on. America doesn't have people who could actually do this. I mean, they helped rebuild Europe after World War II. I mean, come on, what's going on? Well, as it turned out, it was another patronage operation. They found the people to do this through resumes that the Heritage Foundation dug up. And it turned out that the main qualification was their adherence to, right-wing ideology, particularly, things like if they were pro-life or not. That was really important for the person who was putting together the new stock market in Iraq. And they were like 22, 25-year-olds who had never had a job before. They were had been interns at the Heritage Foundation. So I just mention that because I see the same thing here in their minds, that they're going to do the same thing. They want to put in their people, right? And they want to put in good Republican ideologues in there. But think about who the Trump voters really are. Think about the kind of people that you're going to find that are going to, want to go take some, mid-level job at the EPA. I mean, these people don't know how to do anything. And I'm not sure they even know how to destroy things. Now, it's possible that they will go in there and just do nothing. They'll just let it all go to hell. I mean, that's a thing that they can do. But I'm just, if there's any grand plan to create something out of this, and I'm not sure there is, because a lot of this, as Steve Bannon, has made clear, is just chaos agent stuff. They're just going to, just wreck it all and then, I don't know, rise like a phoenix out of the ashes. But I do think that the idea that the Heritage Foundation and these Republican think tanks, this is not a group of particularly competent people, which may be worse because in the end, chaos and instability, it may be the worst thing that could happen.
I mean, from the perspective of deconstructing the administrative state, putting 50,000 as they want, there's 40,000, I guess, employees essentially that they want to remove their civil service. Getting rid of 40,000 civil servants and just putting in, a cardboard cutout is all you really need to do, right? I mean, you're losing all of the institutional memory. You're losing all of the institutional competence. And then it's just off to the races because all of a sudden people aren't getting their checks from the ag department. They aren't getting their Social Security. They're not getting, the water's bad. I mean, you're off to the races at that point because you've achieved what you want to achieve, is turn the government essentially, if not against people, the people against the government because it's not effective. And
It's not working. Yeah.
no, it's simply not working. And the idea of it being, this now, like this sort of the agenda being completely farmed out into the institutional aspects of the Republican Party. We interviewed Andy Kroll, who's now at ProPublica, about his Leonard Leo piece that he co-wrote with a couple others, we should say. And this is the guy who essentially has remade the judiciary in this country over the course of the past 25 years. And he's now got, people forget this, he's got $1.6 billion, is it, that was bequeathed him in his organization to do the same thing, but with the culture. And this is a guy who has now all of these relationships within the legal apparatus of the Republican Party. But that's the name of the game on that side. And he's just going to do this in the context of, these organizations like Heritage, like the Claremont Foundation. Claremont Foundation, incidentally, has been probably the primary source of all the think pieces on why we don't really need a democracy. We need a religious Caesar. I mean, all of these things are sort of like in the ether now. And it's, I used to say this during the Trump administration was, I don't know if we're at where we're at is like a full-on authoritarianism and fascism, but we would never necessarily need to pass through where we are today to get there. And
good point.
We're getting closer. Like, we're passing through all the things you would need to get to that point.
Absolutely. I mean, we're definitely passing through all that. And, any American, one thing people need to really realize is that when you think about fascism, we think about things like, obviously Germany in the 30s, Italy, Pinochet, Franco in Spain, there are examples of fascism that we're familiar with. American fascism will be different. Let's just face it. It's not going to look like that. It's going to look different. And we have to use our imagination to see how that might be. The fact that we have a TV reality guy who had created an entirely false persona his entire life that was then turned into a TV character, essentially, that really made his second fortune. People have to realize that, Trump was pretty much broke. When they came along and created The Apprentice for him, and The Apprentice made him rich again because with all the branding and he had all the products. He turned into Jessica Simpson basically, or some celebrity selling products, and a lot of people liked it. And there are a lot of billionaire celebrities. Kylie Kardashian, or Kylie Jenner is one. That just because of their name they do it. That's how Trump made his money. So it's that fame / money / glamour thing in American fascism that is going to be very different. And Donald Trump embodies that and makes that work for us. So everybody needs to that's an aside, just keep that in mind as we watch this thing unfold. But the basic fundamentals are the same. And what you say is absolutely true. There's a transition from one to the other. It's not just an abrupt, we're not having a military coup, in other words. That's not happening. We're just gradually becoming this new American fascist state. And what we're seeing here now in this election coming up is the sort of presentation of what exactly they have in mind in terms of actually doing things to benefit the same people that, of course, they were always going to benefit, and what fascism often benefits, which is, their, sort of quasi-populist base, and then the, obviously the corporate, big money people who are, bankrolling a lot of this. Now, Leonard Leo, the interesting thing about that, I thought the other day, and I wrote a little piece about it, within the Trump orbit, there's a new guy. His name is Russell Vogt. He's been around for a while. And he's kind of been running a lot of the real Trumpy stuff, he's, kind of keeping the MAGA extremism alive within the sort of Washington. He was some kind of congressional, I can't remember what specifically his job used to be, but he's been around for a long time. He's emerged as kind of an intellectual leader of the MAGA movement. And he is, interestingly, an enemy of Leonard Leo and thinks that the Federalist Society and Leonard Leo have gone way too soft. Way too soft. They've
Way too soft.
Soft, yeah. They're way too soft. They're squishes. The courts didn't step up to keep Donald Trump in office the way that they were promised to do. They were supposed to be his, Republican puppets. And they didn't do that. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so there's a movement within this. And, look at the Congress right now. You can see the outlines of the kind of fighting that's going on within the Republican Party, that this is kind of happening within the MAGA movement. So just to add that in as a little bit of a complication here, not that it's a good thing, it's a horrible thing because it's between bad and worse, but nonetheless, this kind of churn and instability in this whole thing is leading to, I think, chaos in a bunch of different directions that we haven't really anticipated before.
And I think we would be remiss not to just add one more element to this. I don't think it's unclear whether it was Sinclair Lewis who said this, but the quote has some resonance. When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross. Mm-hmm. And, we do have probably arguably the most powerful, but certainly at least the second most powerful theocrat we have ever had in our government today.
No doubt.
Is Speaker of the House. I mean, this is a guy who's a full-on Christian nationalist. I mean, there's no arguing about that. He's doing a very good job of his lying for the Lord right now in terms of he realizes, we need to sort of tone this down at the moment. But the reason why he's getting the ability to tone it down, we just saw a continuing resolution passed with majority Democratic votes, which of course was the thing that ostensibly got Kevin, I can't even remember his name now, McCarthy. Yeah, Kevin McCarthy booted. Well, the reason why Mike Johnson can get away with it for at least now is because they all know who he is, and they don't have the same suspicion of him when he does that as they did with McCarthy. When Johnson does it, Johnson's doing it because it's part of a longer-term plan to essentially, bring in that Christian nationalism and full-on, right-wing agenda. But it is fascinating what's going on in the House. At least you wrote about this. They're literally we played the clips earlier this week of Burkett getting shoved in the back, and then him implying that maybe Nancy Mace has some dirt on Kevin McCarthy that is specifically Mace centric. I don't know how else to put that. We saw a senator attempt to challenge a union head to a physical fight, I guess presumably on the in the hearing room floor. And here is we never played this clip of Comer losing it in a government oversight committee hearing because a Democratic Congressman, Moskowitz, raised the notion that Comer's entire sort of falling apart narrative on Hunter Biden or the Biden crime family was centered around a $20,000 or $200,000 loan that Biden gave to his brother. And Comer had the exact same thing, except for this supposed loan went, I think, the other direction. And Comer was actually in office when he was doing this, as opposed to Biden, who was out of office at that time. But here's this exchange.
I'm happy to yield you some of my time today, Mr. Chairman, because I think you owe it to the American people to explain why you've gone on Fox News and told people that while the president was out of office, he had a loan with his brother, and in a way they were evading taxes. It has come out in the public that you also do business with your brother with potential loans. And so since you have framed that and manipulated that with the American people, that Joe Biden did something wrong when he wasn't in office, I just would like to know if you would like to use some of my time.
I would love it.
Okay.
You retweeted that story. Completely false. I've never loaned my brother one penny. My father, who was a dentist, had some farmland. He died, and my brother couldn't afford, he wanted to sell it, but he wanted to keep it in the family, so I bought it from my brother. That story that you tweeted also said I had a shell company. That is bullshit. You can come to Monroe County and look at all the land that is titled in that LLC. I think that the problem is, the White House tried to get CNN to write that story. They went around and investigated all this bullshit that Ian Sams is trying to tell people that only dumb, financially illiterate people pick up on, and said that it was a shell company because it was an LLC. They're so financially illiterate that you think because something says LLC, it's a shell company. This company, which I financially disclose, has properties, okay? It manages over 1,000 acres of land for hunting purposes. It owns different
I'll pause it for 1 second. I just want to say, let me tell you what's involved in managing hunting, land available for hunting purposes. What's available is almost nothing. All you basically do is maybe your buddy calls you and says, "Hey man, I just wanted to let you know, okay, yeah, just don't forget to park where the truck is, and I'll just, make sure that I don't tell my other friend to go hunting on that day so that you don't shoot each other." But go ahead. The LLC is helpful for that.
Of land for hunting purposes. It owns different properties. I'm one of the largest landowners in my home area.
What?
Okay. I went to the bank and I borrowed money and I bought that land. I didn't get wires from Romania, China. My family doesn't get wires. Okay. Never loaned my brother money. Don't have an LLC. But you and Goldman, who is Mr. Trust Fund, continue to try to
reclaiming my time.
No, I'm not going to give you your time back. We can stop the clock. You all continue to, you look like a Smurf here, just going around and all this stuff. Now listen,
Mr. Chairman, hold on. If we're not on time,
we disinformation.
You have gone on TV and said the president did something illegal. You're doing stuff with your brother. The American people have the same questions. Why should they believe you? Why should they believe you? Why should they believe you? There's a different rule for the president. There's a different rule for you. Why should they believe what you're saying, Mr. Chairman? Why? You go on Fox News and say loans and deals are a way to evade taxes. We don't know that's what you're doing or not. We don't know. We have no idea. We're supposed to take your word for it. But when the president
you've
says
already
something,
been proven a liar, Mr. Moskowitz.
What's that?
You've already been proven a liar.
Who's proven me a liar? You?
Yes.
Your word means nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Go to my hometown. There's a camera crew there today, an opposition research crew there today.
Mr. Chairman, this seems to have gotten under your skin.
I'll pay for your ticket.
I think the American people have lots of questions, Mr. Chairman, and perhaps you should sit maybe for a deposition.
I will be happy. I will sit with Hunter Biden and Jim Biden, and we can go over our LLC.
That'll be great. I'll make sure the ranking member is happy that you'll sit at a table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a point of order that we should return to regular order for the benefit of the other members.
The ranking member makes a good point.
I'll reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman. I'll wrap it up quickly.
All right, I think we don't need any more at that point.
Oh boy. Well, this is
Are
very
Smurfs
interesting.
still a thing? I don't know. Like, are there Smurfs anymore?
I think they did do a movie like 10 years ago. So.
Oh God. The thing is about this, and this, what you have to understand is the context is that what Comer has been out there saying that because Joe Biden's family, not him, but his brother and his son and various people who were sort of, invested in the business had a bunch of shell companies. They were all shell companies, but they were running, and the implication, although he hasn't come right out and said it, but he's pretty much said it. The implication is that they were laundering foreign money through these shell companies to pay off Joe Biden to deliver for the Chinese and the Russian or the Ukrainians and whoever else that he's
presumably if he ever gets back into office.
Pocket of. If he ever got back into office someday, then maybe they could get this payoff. Okay. Well, the truth is he's going on and on there in that comment about how his shell company, the hunting, he's got an LLC and it's a perfectly legitimate LLC because he has hunting land. All the businesses that the Bidens had are also legitimate companies.
Of course.
Everyone looked at them. They weren't shell companies. They're people working. They've got offices. They've got websites. They've got everything. It's not just some made up thing. By the way, there is someone who has a lot of shell companies, and his name is Donald Trump, and he's on trial right now for some of that activity. So, this is completely ridiculous. And what Comer is saying is just, it's not borne out by the facts. This land swap thing that he did with his brother is very, very much in line with, the kind of shady activity that people do when they're trying to avoid taxes and gift taxes and things like that, inheritance taxes. This is what we're talking about. So he went off on Moskowitz there, who I thought, and he has tweeted some very amusing stuff about Smurfs since then, by the way, that they're really funny if anybody wants to look. And Comer is determined to, spread this innuendo about the, Biden and his family and his son. We all know what that's about. And in fact, this is all in service of this ongoing impeachment inquiry that they're doing, which now is going full steam ahead. They can't fund the government. They can't even get a spending bill to the floor. They spent all week fighting amongst themselves, elbowing each other in the kidneys. What was it? Clean shot to the kidneys that Burke had said. He got a clean shot to the kidneys. And, this guy, Mark Wayne Mullen over in the Senate, threatening to he not only threatened the Teamster president, said, let's, come on, you ready to go, get your butt up and all that stuff. He's been all over TV and he's saying stuff like, I don't just hit, I bite. So apparently he is threatening to bite the Teamster president. This is the kind of lunacy that's going on. And yet they cannot get any spending bill. They can't get it to the floor. It's not just that they can't pass it. They cannot get past the procedure to actually get it to the floor because either the moderates are rebelling because it's some draconian freak show that they don't want to be responsible for, or, of course, most of the time it's the Freedom Caucus members who feel like it's not draconian enough. So, there's 12 days left in the year, left in the session for the year, and then they come back and this whole thing's going to happen again. They will have accomplished nothing because they can't do anything. But what they can do, apparently, is they can impeach Joe Biden. And that is what they're going to be working on. They've now subpoenaed Hunter Biden, James Biden, president's brother, and a business associate of theirs by the name of Walker. And they've been subpoenaed to come and appear like week after next. Walker's going to appear, and then right on the heels of that, it'll be James and then Hunter. Of course, this will be a big TV show. We'll all be watching, get out the popcorn. And this is what they're going to do. Now, Mike Johnson, the theocrat, who, Mr. Morality, has made it clear. I mean, in private closed door session at one point, he was reported to have said, maybe we don't need to do the impeachment because Joe Biden's already been weakened enough and maybe we don't need to do it. But Jim Jordan and the rest of them, they're determined. They want to do it and they need their show and they need to get their Fox News hits and do all that. So they're going to do it. And Mike Johnson is now behind it. He put out a statement saying it's been proven, it's been shown that, Joe Biden is correct. The shell companies, he brought that up again, which is a total red herring. And it's been shown to do all these things. And so now we have to go forward. So essentially, these Republicans believe that somehow it's in their interest to fail to do any kind of governing at all, pass a budget, but the impeachment of Joe Biden will, somehow work to their advantage. And maybe it will. I mean, I don't even know.
I actually think it's going to be the opposite, frankly. I think the best thing that could happen to Joe Biden at this point is for them to move forward with this impeachment stuff. I mean, and then here's Representative Chip Roy from Texas. And
he's mad. He's real
mad. This is I can't imagine this will not be in 200 ads across the country, in the fall for House members. Some may not have to run TV ads because they're running unopposed, in the general election. Who knows? But this is Chip Roy from Texas, 21st District. Republican.
For the life of me, I do not understand how you can go to the trouble of campaigning, raising money, going to events, talking to people, coming to this town as a member of a party who allegedly stands for something, allegedly stands for reducing spending, allegedly stands for eliminating debt, securing the border, strong military, ending the wokeness that is killing and corrupting our schools and our kids, and then do nothing about it. One thing. I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, that I can go campaign on and say we did. One. Anybody sitting in the complex, if you want to come down to the floor and come explain to me one material, meaningful, significant thing the Republican majority has done besides, I guess it's not as bad as the Democrats. Because that reminds me of the line from Patton when he said, you won't have to say, I was shoveling crap in Louisiana. Because
I don't remember that. I assume he's talking about a movie, not actual, he hasn't read any history. But I guess the idea is I don't want to be here, and at least you can say I'm not doing something that is theoretically worse. Like I'm in prison or something in Louisiana. I'm not sure about the Patton thing, but let's not get distracted by that. That is a great ad for Democrats. But let's just put up, I was just curious as to the different legislation that Congressman Roy has put out there, just to get a sense of what that would mean if he actually was to get some of his bills passed. Is that the top one there? It's providing, making appropriations for the Department of Defense. Okay. The FACE repeal, COVID Origin Transparency Act, veterans access to direct primary care. I don't know what's in this, but that sounds pretty good.
It sounds good. Yeah.
He introduced all these.
It's probably privatizing the VA.
Exactly.
Higher Education Reform and Opportunity Act. Does that prevent people from getting college debt relief? Expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that the majority of NATO members have failed to meet their defense spending commitment, and the United States should not continue to subsidize the security of the countries that, I don't know, he needs to come up with a catchier name for that. No taxpayer funding for SARS Act.
A throwback there?
Yeah, expressing the sense of the House regarding the relationship between certain obligations and NATO. Impeaching Joe Biden, that's one. He wanted one. Let's see. Passport Sanity Act. Reciprocity ensures streamlined use of life-saving treatments act. I don't know. I mean, he's been busy. But which no ESG at TSP? What does that mean?
It's no woke investing with the thrift savings program, and it's no wokeness in mutual funds.
There you go. I mean, he's been, the Sister City Transparency Act. I'm sure that's some kind of anti-immigrant.
I looked into the Passport Sanity Act, and would you be shocked to find out that is about the reversing the, I think there was a Hillary Clinton era decision which allowed people to be unspecified gender on their passports.
That's insane. That's insane.
He's a very serious person. But you know where Chip Roy, you know what his previous work, he was the chief of staff to Ted Cruz. That's where old Chip
what
comes
an office,
from.
jeez.
Yeah. And I mean, he's mad, by the way, that's not all that he's mad about. He's mad about Mike Johnson allowing this. He's mad that they allowed the continuing resolution, the temporary continuing resolution to pass. He was on the steps of the Capitol yesterday, I think, and Marge Green, she came by and put in her 2 cents, saying that this is it. This is Johnson's last hurrah. They gave him one pass, and that is it. They're not going to stand for this anymore. So, what he's basically saying is, you're on notice. Get ready.
Shut the government down next time, or they're
going to shut the government down. And if you don't shut the government down, I mean, basically, he was threatening him, saying, we're going to take you out like we took out McCarthy, because they did take out McCarthy ostensibly for the same reason that he had. Of course, there was all this bad blood, and Matt Gaetz and had all these issues with McCarthy. There were many reasons why McCarthy went down, but that was ostensibly the reason, was that he was going to pass a continuing resolution with more Democratic votes than Republicans, which is what just happened.
I mean, I wonder if they're going to be able to amass the same numbers this time around for Johnson, because, Burkett was upset, really, apparently, because McCarthy made fun of God.
Right. They all had their petty reasons.
Yeah, something. And Nancy Mace sounds like she had some very Kevin McCarthy specific issues with Kevin McCarthy.
Apparently. And she also does whatever she does. Nancy Mace does whatever she does is purely for attention. And in fact, there was released this past week, another interesting little tidbit, some notes and directives from her office, which for her staff, which apparently they hate her, that everything that she does is about getting on television, every single thing. And she says this blatantly, this is what I do. So whatever she needs to do to get attention, she will do. And being a member of the Crazy Eight really did work for her. Everybody knows who she is now.
Totally. I hope she's on the Kristen Sinema trajectory, and by this time next year is a green is left the Republican Party
could be.
I mean, it would be nice to see, a Green Party member of Congress. I think that's where they should start anyways.
Yeah,
so if it's Nancy Mace, it's Nancy Mace. So I'm not sure where this leaves us. I guess we have like some type of reprieve, at least holiday, federal workers don't have to go through the holidays on some type of furlough or something like that. Of course, the anxiety that they have and the inability for our government to do anything, you can't do long-term or even midterm or short-term planning if you don't know if the government's going to shut down for 4 months starting in January or February. Like, how do you go out to contractors? How do you go out and start programs? How do you hire, I don't know, you can't fund daycare centers to the extent that we're doing that anymore. And have them say like, well, you may not have funding come,
right,
February,
we can't guarantee anything.
I mean, it really is a disaster. But
look at what's going on in the Senate. I mean, with the military hold. I mean, this guy, Tommy Tuberville, and his wingman now, Mike Lee, they are turning the whole thing into chaos over there. It's as bad as Chip Roy and the rest of them, and Nancy Mace and Matt Gaetz in the House. And this is the governing of the Republicans. You have to wonder if the American people are paying any attention, which I don't blame them if they're not, because it's just so awful. But if they are paying attention, what are they seeing here? I mean, this is, I'm sure some of them are getting off on it. The hardcore MAGA people love this stuff. This is Trump's America. But, anybody who's still halfway sane has got to be looking at this going, my God, these people are, they appear to be acting like children. I mean, they really do. It's a case of massive arrested development.
It's going to be interesting. I wonder how much this resonates with the American public. I mean, I suspect at the end of the day, when we get in terms of, from an electoral perspective, it still ends up being, I think abortion rights is still your primary thing. But we're talking, what are the implications marginally for congressional seats? At the same time, I don't know that there's been a period of time where Joe Biden's ability to beat Donald Trump, particularly in the context of third party candidates, has ever looked more tenuous than it does today. And it's hard to imagine it could look more tenuous than this. Obviously, it could
look more tenuous.
Yeah, well, yeah, no,
yeah, I mean, it could be worse. It could be worse.
But relative to just how bad the Republican Party looks, that's what I'm talking about.
They've never been worse. Yeah,
no, they've never been worse, and it's never been more explicit. I mean, like I say, we just have Chip Roy on there going, "Give me one reason, one thing I can campaign on." It's 12 months out from an election. I got news for you, buddy. It's not going to get any easier between now and then. And
things always lock up in the last year anyway.
Totally.
And they have done, the first year is when you in a Congress is when you get something done.
100%. And
of course, keep in mind too that these people don't seem to know how they really need to see the little, how a bill becomes a law, because he's saying, we were sent here to do things. Well, they had a 4-vote majority in one house of Congress. They didn't have the Senate, they didn't have the presidency, and the mere idea that they were making these over, the top promises to their people that they were going to get things done was always ridiculous. The best they could hope for would be to,
everybody does that, and they also all basically say, we did our job, and then the Republicans in the Senate didn't
They'd
do
have
their
something
job.
to run on. They could say they could have something to run on.
Exactly.
That's
but,
it.
and like I say, Biden looks tenuous in that respect. And who knows? It's still a long time away, but, and the least important thing, it seems to me, about what the U.S. is doing in terms of supporting Israel's actions are the political fallout. I have a lot more sort of moral and humanity, humanity issues associated with it.
Sure.
But it's certainly not helping him politically in any way. No. I don't think there's ever been a huge constituency that is terribly relevant that would punish him for saying ceasefire, frankly. But be that as it may, a subsidiary question of that is AIPAC has announced they're going to spend $100 million. And that's not including the DMFI PAC and their affiliated PACs in trying to oust maybe 10 Democratic representatives in primaries. This is all to basically say, to send a message to everybody else. This is a disciplinary action. Pramila Jayapal, it was reported today, I think, was in with Hakeem Jeffries saying, you got to do something here. And by do something, that can be stuff like, and certainly the Democrats in the House have done this before. If you work with any type of challengers, we're going to put you on the blacklist like we did before. And this is a crucial period of time in terms of Democrats taking the House, because there's a good chance they lose the Senate. Like we say, it's a tenuous situation with the presidency. It's sort of a weird type of dynamic where they could actually win back the House. And they could win back the House, it seems to me, by 10 seats even. Yeah. And so what's your sense of what Hakeem Jeffries is going to do? Because this is a very hard thing to read. He doesn't have, he needs, he probably wants the majority in a way that, maybe Pelosi could have been hey, 2 years in, 2 years out. I mean, who knows? Obviously, she wants the majority, but he doesn't necessarily have the power to push back on, his number one funder is I think AIPAC, if I'm not mistaken. What happens here?
I don't know. I didn't know that about Jeffries, that his number one funder was AIPAC. That
pretty high. Let me get this specific.
Complicates things substantially. look, this is now, we're in a really kind of a binary choice in terms of American politics. Taking the Israel and Gaza situation out of it, which is intensely, difficult and complex, politically speaking, in America. It's not morally complex, I don't think. I mean, to me, dead kids are dead kids. I don't care whose dead kids they are, they're still dead kids. And I just see that's very clearly, for me, it is morally very easy for me to look at that situation and see right from wrong. Ceasefire is obviously required. There's just no doubt about it. Now, when you look at it, the political analysis is much more complicated in the United States. The polling shows, all kinds of things. The Democrats and Republicans are kind of split in a weird way. It's very difficult. Having said that, if you look at if AIPAC is going to be going specifically after Democratic politicians and saying, we're going to do this if you don't toe the line, they are making a choice that they are now basically a Republican lobbying operation, and they are now affiliated with the party that is explicitly aligned itself with fascism, and even more specifically with Nazism. Now, Donald Trump was out there talking about vermin, and maybe he thought he was talking about hippies or something, but I would think that AIPAC would understand what the resonance of that and understand who they are aligning themselves with. The Democrats have to understand this, and they've got to recognize what's happening there and realize that this is not, when it comes to American politics, there is no, there's no such thing as aligning with fascism and being our friend. That just can't be. That simply can't be. So my view is pretty clear on this. I don't know if the Democrats are probably not seeing it that way. They've got a lot of people in the Congress and around the country who are very traumatized by what happened on October 7th and are traumatized by the anti-Semitism they're seeing around. That's a different concern. AIPAC is something very specific, and they are backing, essentially, by doing this, by saying that they're going to do this and trying to manipulate this situation, are saying that we're going to back Donald Trump and his fascist MAGA movement, and that's basically what they're saying. So,
well, first off, AIPAC doesn't care. They don't care about that. They donated to 106 Republicans who voted, to decertify the election. The dynamic has existed in terms of Netanyahu going and looking for support from right-wing fascist political parties in Europe. He's been doing that for over a decade. You can look at it like, why is John Hagee speaking at an supposed anti-Semitism rally? I mean, this guy thinks that Hitler was bequeathed us by God to bring about the return of the Messiah by getting all the Jews to go to Israel. I mean, that's not, he's no friend of Israel, of Jews in that instance, maybe a friend of Israel. But Hakeem Jeffries, top 5 PAC contributors, 2022. And maybe you could pop this up. I mean, this is what's really disturbing in terms of this dynamic, because they knocked off a couple of progressive of Democrats in the last round. Top one is, scroll down. Top one is Pro-Israel America PAC. That's AIPAC. That's his top contributor. The next one is Vote Sane. I think that is just a general PAC. But NORPAC is, in fact, a promoting the U.S.-Israel relationship, nonpartisan group. And then American Israel Public Affairs Committee is his 4th biggest contributor. And Paul Weiss et al. I'm not sure who that is.
That's the law firm that Jeffries used to work at prior to being in Congress.
So, and I don't know if they're one of the people who have rescinded offers, in the news as of late. But I mean, you can get you get the gist here. This guy's own personal political fortune is very tied up, in money from AIPAC and affiliated organizations. I mean, it's really, there's been times in the past where he's sort of paid some lip service to when they went off of Ilhan Omar. The only upshot about this, the only one upshot, is that with AIPAC coming in this hard, if the squad members and squad adjacent can withstand these primary challenges, what it does is it completely undercuts the power of AIPAC, because their whole thing is, watch what we did to them. We could do this to you.
We can do it to you, right?
It's the Fonzie effect. He had to punch one guy once, and then everybody thinks that he's, the tough guy, just to drop a reference that is probably older than 90% of the audience here. But
Fonzie?
Yes, sadly. But I don't know, you know what I'm talking about, Digby. But
I know, yeah. I mean,
does.
yeah, I'm old enough.
But if they can overcome this, then all of a sudden it sort of like destroys the proof of concept, as it were. And so this could be a seminal fight. I mean, it's, it happened with the Democrats in the NRA too. There
And
was
I
a time.
think, in fact, that's a really good point. That's a really good point, because that's what happened, was that the NRA wielded tremendous power over numbers of Democrats. And when they actually stood their ground and said, recognized that they had to take a stand, it worked. And the NRA no longer has that influence in the Democratic Party. It hasn't yet made the difference that it needs to, but it not for lack of trying from the Republicans, from the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats are actually pretty united now on that issue. And this same thing could happen. And it's not, this isn't really about, this isn't about, deciding that the U.S. can't ever support Israel. That's really that's beyond the scope of this particular thing. This is about a very powerful lobby wielding outsized power in the Democratic Party while it's allying itself with the other party. Which is the same thing the NRA did. Very, very powerful thing to do, and it is truly toxic to Democratic politics. And I think you're right. And I think these progressives who are, being targeted this way, I think they have a good chance of surviving.
I think
the dynamic right now, I think the dynamic in the party right now is, this isn't really about money in the sense that AIPAC can throw a lot of money at these folks, but this issue is bigger than that. And it is more personal, I think, to people.
One more, just like word on this. So Greg Kazar, who is undoubtedly one of the people who are going to be targeted, as soon as this was announced, he came out and his office released a paper that basically said, bring it on. 80% of my constituents, disagree with you on this. But what AIPAC has done in the past, and what the MFI has done in the past, is they don't necessarily go all in or even at all with making it about Israel when they attack these progressives.
They might not
they
even
come in
Israel.
on something else, whatever they perceive as to be the vulnerability. The Israel stuff, they don't even necessarily deploy that because they don't want it to be about that. But this type of stuff, it's horrible. And frankly, also, there's never, obviously, I say as a Jew, any justification for anti-Semitism. But there are things that I think when there are accelerants that can exist, and this type of stuff, going in and dumping this kind of money for an agenda that would be at the very least inexplicit, let's put it that way, not helpful. Not
helpful. And you've got, to me, AIPAC, and, we've talked about AIPAC for, they've been outsized influence. They took out, what was her name? Cynthia McKinney. Remember her?
No, you're thinking of, it's not McKinney. They took out Donna Edwards.
Right. Donna
It
Edwards.
was Donna
This is
Edwards,
just,
and
a very mainstream Democrat, by the way, not
and Levin, I think in Michigan, they took Andy Levin rather.
Andy
in
Levin,
Michigan.
yeah. I mean, this is they've been extremely they've had this kind of outsized power for a long time, but we're at a point now where the choice is so stark, and people have to. This has to be made explicit within the Democratic Party. This has to come from within the party itself. They've got to, what AIPAC is doing is they are basically, and you can just put in the current context, they're backing, Bibi Netanyahu. It's not Israel, it's Bibi Netanyahu and his agenda and what he is doing, which means that they are also, betraying the many Israelis who at this point and before wanted to get rid of Netanyahu. So there's plenty of people who are not going along with the AIPAC agenda in this way. And the same thing in the United States. They are allying themselves with Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Now, Democrats who have got to understand that that's not okay. That is just not okay. And if they do this kind of stuff, if they continue to do this kind of stuff, they're going to break apart the unity that the Democrats have surprisingly had over the past few years in recognizing the threat that's coming from the right. And that means we're sunk, because that's the only thing we have. So, here we are.
Heather Parton, Digby, folks, check out Heather's work in salon. What is it? 3 times a week, and at Hullabaloo, digbysblog.com daily. Heather, always a
7
pleasure.
days a week.
Thanks
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me, Sam. Good to talk to you.
All right, folks. I think we're going to head into the fun half. What do you think about that? Folks, reminder, it is your support that makes the show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. And when you become a member, you not only get the free show free of commercials, you get the fun half. You also get access to IMing us. You also allow us survive and thrive regardless of, we're going to make videos that are going to get demonetized because, I wouldn't necessarily always want to advertise next to, when we're talking about this carnage. I don't care about that stuff. The things, there are times you get more demonetized than others and less than others. And, we don't look at that stuff, frankly. I get an email and I don't even open it. I just see from the top of the thing.
You
Who
don't
cares?
screenshot it and then run straight to social media and act like a giant victim to promote yourself?
No, I do not. It would involve way too much effort, frankly. But it is because of our members. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we do or don't do or what we say or this and that. It's our members. And frankly, there's enough of you so that no individual one can actually influence us. Or even 10 of you, with all due respect. I haven't had this happen in a long time, but there was a time early on where I get an email from somebody who's like, I'm going to quit my membership unless you do X, Y, or Z. And there was nothing more fun for me than to fire someone from being a member of the show and saying, I'm going to, if we ever get technology, I'm going to prevent you from even hearing the free show. But you certainly, and I would just go and cancel their membership.
Block their IPs.
Yeah, they don't have the technology to do that. I'm sure we do have the tech somehow to do it, but I don't know how to do it. But there's nothing more fun for me than firing a member. But with that said, I want to encourage you to become one. Also, justcoffee.coop. Another great gift for people at the holiday is coffee. And what better way to give a gift that you can feel good about? The company represents all of your values. It's a co-op. They're really helpful for their farmers that start off by, helping Zapatistas and or in the Zapatista region, I should say, farmers. But it's a co-op. Great stuff. JustCoffee.coop. And you can give the majority report blend, or you can give others. Maybe somebody likes Mark Maron. I don't know why they would, but you can give them the WTF blend. But they also have a bunch of other type of coffees. Check it out. JustCoffee.coop. Ice cream's so good. Sam, I've started listening to y'all exclusively on Rumble since the YouTube ads got to be so disruptive. If anyone else wants to come over, we can finally get double-digit view counts over there. Yeah, check it out on Rumble, I guess. We figured out, like, we got to talk about this. How we, we'll figure it out. Emma's out today. Bradley, what happened the last time on ESPN?
Well, because Emma was out yesterday, we posted our picks of the week for Week 11 NFL action on our Twitter account at ESPN Show on Twitter, and you can check out our Monday show where we talked about the Week 10 NFL action as well as the Edmonton Oilers and the NHL in free fall to start the season. YouTube.com/ESPN Show to check out that stream and some clips if you'd like to catch up, and we will be back on Monday.
Matt, Left Reckoning.
Left Reckoning, yeah, David and I this week went... Actually, go subscribe. We are 92 subscribers on YouTube, short of 30,000.
Whoa!
Most recent video, David and I getting into Candace Owens' problematic turn to criticizing Israel, basically because she wasn't defended by her Jewish colleagues when she wanted to defend Kyrie Irving, Kanye West, and that Hitler needed to just keep it in Germany. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning, but go subscribe to the YouTube channel.
We'll put a link to that in the podcast and YouTube description. Left Reckoning over there. Holtenheim, we'll read one IM. Sam Seder, being a crazy old man rambling about firing subscribers feels like we launched into the fun half before the music hit. Love it. Just be careful. See you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance.
Ooh.
Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
we are back. It is the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. I am moments away from opening up the phone lines. We'll open up the phone lines. We got a lot of clips, though, to get to today that I want to talk about. Here's one. Listen, this is maybe a little bit heavy to start off the fun half with. I want to just play the audio first, and we'll stop the clip partway through because I want you to see if you can guess. This is from Fox and Friends.
I think this is the 5.
Oh, this is the 5. It's from the 5, I think. Fox is the 5, one of the highest rated cable news programs on television. And this is Riley Gaines. Is she a full-time employee over at Fox now?
She is at Outkick, which is like a subsidiary of, I think, Fox Sports, run by Clay Travis. But I don't know if she's like a perennial Fox contributor.
But she's on there. And, of course, she is the one who was upset because she, came in 5th. What was it? She lost a swim race?
To Leah Thomas, the trans swimmer in college, which it was literally, she got 5th place.
She got in 5th place. So she wasn't.
And one of the person was a trans athlete.
Yeah. Okay. So she would have gotten into 4th place if Leah Thomas did not exist at all. And we would have never heard of her. But she came in 5th place. And fortunately for her, Leah Thomas won the race. So she was able to have an entire career that she wouldn't otherwise have. But here she is warning us about a really dangerous thing that is growing in the American body, consciousness.
It doesn't make sense. You have to ask yourself, why do they keep pushing this? Who are they trying to appeal to? Because despite what the media portrays or how politicians are voting, this doesn't represent.
Okay. This doesn't represent the American public. I want you to take a guess at what she's talking about. She's not talking about any trans issues. She's off that. She's she understands that. But what is it that is making her so concerned? Let's play this from the beginning. She is Riley Gaines, the Outkick host on Fox News.
It doesn't make sense. You have to ask yourself, why do they keep pushing this? Who are they trying to appeal to? Because despite what the media portrays or how politicians are voting, this doesn't represent the overwhelming majority of how this country, really how the world, feels on this issue. I think majority of people, parents especially, they can acknowledge that gay nutcracker and black disabled Santa has gone way too far. The pendulum has swung.
The pendulum has swung too far. First off, this is Jesse Waters.
The pendulum.
The pendulum has swung too far, folks.
From a white Coca-Cola Santa to black disabled Santa.
We'll get to the black disabled Santa in a moment. And incidentally, this is how Megyn Kelly made her bones at Fox, by saying everybody knows that Santa is white. If you have ever watched the Nutcracker Ballet, and I will tell you that I don't think I have seen a production of anything more times live and on video than the Nutcracker. When I was a kid, I had no idea what it was. I thought because it was a Russian ballet thing, and they would show up, and I would just assume it's some Russian thing. Because, I didn't celebrate Christmas. But my daughter got into ballet. And I have seen so many productions of the Nutcracker. I have seen productions of the Nutcracker in regional theater. I have seen productions of the Nutcracker at Lincoln Center on multiple occasions. I've seen the Ballantine version. I've seen the one in Seattle and in San Francisco. I've seen ones in LA, all on video. And I will tell you something. There is maybe no single production that is so widely disseminated, that is so clearly about pedophilia than the Nutcracker. I'm sorry. Like they've different productions have basically eliminated it, but I want to make it clear. It is about an uncle showing up in the middle of the night to provide this young girl with a nutcracker, and she goes on a tour where she gets candy if she goes, on this tour. I mean, it is, and there are some productions that sort of acknowledge it with a couple of like, these looks, but so the idea that like this is too far, the Nutcracker is perverse because there's a gay person involved in it. Are you kidding me? The Nutcracker is one of the most perverse things that could possibly exist. And they know it because they've changed it over and over again. They keep changing it to make it like where it's as far away from this premise of this sort of like weird uncle showing up who's going to sneak in the middle of the night and give this girl a nutcracker.
I also just want to highlight the depths to which there's so much in-group speak with this stuff going on in a clip like this. Like, Matt, if you could just put it up again, the Chiron here, the Dylanization of corporate America.
Every single conservative in the country knows what that is. It is about that person, Dylan Mulvaney, who I like. She could be sitting right here. I have no idea who she is.
That's the thing.
But she was involved with Bud Light, and it hurt Bud Light's. But somehow, which has come up many times before, because Megyn Kelly, back when she was on Fox 10 years ago, was complaining about the idea of a black Santa Claus.
Right.
And for the rest of the country, we've moved on about the idea of like gay people in a production. But for them, it's like, how can the Nutcracker be about gay people? What are you talking about? It's not even a religious thing. It's just about Christmas.
And even
gay people don't have Christmas,
right? And trying to conflate it or sort of like continue the longer tale of like Dylan Mulvaney's relevance in this topic is like. It's totally translatable for people who watch this every day, but even as someone who does it for work, like I forgot about it.
Of course. Totally but I've got some very bad news for those folks who are going to the ballet and don't want to be exposed to any gay people. I've got some very bad news for you about some of the performers you may encounter in the ballet. But the idea that it's sort of offensive for a black paralyzed, what is it, what's the issue with the Santa? Like
he's in a wheelchair and is black.
Like he's in a wheelchair and it's like Jesus would be so offended. Can you imagine?
Yeah, just one thing. Salon has a thing on the origins of Nutcracker and the different versions of it. And this just Pacific Northwest Ballet's version includes a pedophilic godfather, Drosselmeyer, who gives Marie the Nutcracker doll and lustfully pouts when she falls in love with the doll rather than him.
I mean, honestly, the whole thing is really creepy. It's really creepy. And there are versions, I think it's the Seattle version, where they have like somebody's there, like they have a kid, like the prince is there, or there's a guide to guide Drosselmeyer, and there's a lot of the kid going like, look into camera in this production, going like, Jobby Bunyar says, for the love of God, keep homosexuality out of the ballet.
I have to say, I know somebody from North Dakota, big fans of when they come to New York seeing Broadway productions, and also very anti-gay Catholic, and it's like, what's going on there?
Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. All right. I have now turned the voicemail off. We will open up the phone lines. We have a lot of things to get to. I'm not sure. Ghost buses or
Are we done with the Black Santa stuff? We don't have more Christmas related 2 months out.
It is.
I guess
Well,
it's
we're
only a
only a month
month
out,
Yeah, fair
so we got to get on the Black Santa stuff.
We're amassing on the border of the North Pole right now.
Let's talk about Tim Pool for a second. Tim Pool, as you know, David DePape, is that the way we pronounce his name? David DePape. This is the man who attacked Paul Pelosi in his home. Ostensibly, he was looking for Nancy Pelosi, I guess. And he testified in his case. He's since been convicted of assault. I don't know if this man would have gone in to and tried to attack the Pelosi's if Tim Pool didn't exist, if Lindsay, what's the guy's name?
James Lindsay.
James Lindsay didn't exist. I think people who react in this way to stuff clearly have some mental and emotional issues. But I also think that people who listen to Tim Pool on a regular basis, there's a prima facie argument that they all have mental or emotional issues if you actually listen to this guy and get their news from them. But the point is that there are, within any population of people, there are people who are emotionally or mentally have issues. Maybe they're being treated, maybe they're not. That is the nature of every society. And you need to, if you are speaking to a society, be aware of this because it's just human nature. And you need to take responsibility on some level as to what you're putting out there. People can have a disagreement as to what is reasonable for you to say when you're in this position. But if it keeps happening and people who do these type of things keep mentioning your name, you may want to ask yourself, why is that? And Tim Pool has the answer, and that is, I don't believe any of it.
Man who attacked Paul Pelosi last year has testified that it was right-wing conspiracies driven by Gamergate that resulted in his plot to break into the Pelosi's home and to prove corruption. You see, his plan was simple. He wanted to kidnap Nancy Pelosi, force her to confess to corruption on camera, and post it on the internet. And he said he wanted to send a message to members of Congress that there are consequences for corruption. It's rather insane, if you ask me. But we're all big fans of the mainstream media, so let me just say, Paul Pelosi, who was accused of trying to buy drugs from a man in San Francisco in a deal that went wrong, was, you get the point. As the media does. Yes, Paul Pelosi was accused.
I don't get the point. I don't know if that's his trying to sort of like imply. He's no trying angel. To imply. Well, I don't know if he's trying to imply that that's why DePape was in the house. Now, if you were to believe that, which he seems to be promoting that idea, but without trying to promote that idea, if you get my drift, if you believe that, you have to believe that DePape's testimony was all fraudulent in his own case. And instead of actually saying that, testifying that way, which in some way may like help his defense, he's been convicted, incidentally. Tim Pool will have you believe that no, all of this is a fiction. Continue.
You get the point. As the media does. Yes, Paul Pelosi was accused of doing such a thing. There's no strong evidence for it. Just, I don't know, circumstance and people wondering why it is that this guy was able to get into his house. There was no security detail and the story doesn't really add up. And now, quite conveniently, What the media is reporting is that DePape went on the stand and said,
Sorry,
James...
just pause it 1 second. Like, the idea that, like, Rand Paul was beat up by his neighbor. Like, these people don't have security on, like, guarding them at all times, let alone their family members.
Family members, of
Exactly.
course not.
Conveniently, what the media is reporting is that DePape went on the stand and said James Lindsay, Glenn Beck, and Tim Pool, that he was watching these podcasts and then got angry about corruption. But you know what? Look, man, my attitude on all this is I don't believe it. Don't know, don't care. I just don't believe it. This guy, it's so convenient that all of a sudden he's coming out and claiming like Glenn Beck and James Lindsay, me and many others were inspirational, or that's what he was listening to. It's absurd nonsense. It's a meaningless thing they add to these stories because they're trying to drum up traffic by including our names in it and things like this. Because the reality is, yeah, each and every one of us have quite literally said.
All right, pause there for 1 second. So his charge is that this is, I can't tell if he's thinking that the testimony was made up because all they're doing is reporting what the guy said on the stand.
Right.
Like, the story is that someone broke in to the Speaker of the House's house, attacked her husband because the guy was waiting to kidnap the Speaker of the House. And he doesn't expect the media to report on the testimony of this guy.
I mean, just to like kind of a comparison, if somebody said, I went to this protest for Palestine because of what I heard on your show, I don't think we deserve all the credit for it. But I would say like that we probably influenced that person to some degree because they've explicitly said it.
Like they've heard it from some other places. And, you know, the fact is that like there is a parasocial dynamic that exists here. There is a dynamic of like, there's a million other people subscribed to this channel. This person has, and I don't subscribe to, you should give any authority to anything that we say here beyond its ability to stand on its own. But that's a dynamic that takes place. Tim Pool is aware that when he walks through an airport, people come up and like, oh my God, Tim Pool, can I take a selfie with you? What we say here has implications for people, whether it should or shouldn't. And you don't need to be doing this very long to understand that dynamic. But he's saying like, I'm not going to, he's even denying it happened. La 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 la. Do do do. Go ahead. Let's hear what now he's going to explain how it's so ridiculous. It's just a coincidence that multiple people have expressed that they have been bathing in these ideas. And they cite these people just randomly, I guess. Like you could have, he's not getting it from a book.
Are they coaching him to say it on the stand?
I mean, honestly, like what is the point that Tim is trying to make here? Who is lying? The media shouldn't report this? Is that what he's saying? Or that the guy just made it up in his own defense, which got him nowhere.
Stories because they're trying to drum up traffic by including our names in it and things like this. Because the reality is, yeah, each and every one of us have quite literally said that the things this guy does or did or is accused of doing is the opposite of victory. So it's just, I find it fascinating that this is the narrative that's emerging a year later in testimony, because once again, James Lindsay's like core point is your reaction is their goal. And so if you have a guy like him or me who are like, violence is the opposite of success, engaging in violent action is costing us, and the fact is we are winning, well, hold on. Why would someone who listens to
pause
these
it for 1
podcasts...
second. See, this is where I get a little bit confused. So who is he talking about is winning here? Tim Pool and James Lindsay are winning? Didn't he just say to Emma, like, I'm liberal, listen to my show? Like, what is he winning? What's the win here in terms of what is he talking about? But continue.
And the fact is we are winning. Well, hold on. Why would someone who listens to these podcasts actually go out and do something like this? Doesn't seem to make sense. Now, the simple answer, of course, Occam's razor would suggest this guy's nuts. And that's simply put. But of course, now the leftist narrative is to try and poison the well and make the argument that if you listen to Glenn Beck, me, many others, it's not just us, but those are the names I'm using. If you listen to us, that we're somehow inspiring these people to do these crazy things, which is, once again, if I make video after video after video where I'm like, we are winning, so we need to double down on get out the vote initiatives. We're winning the culture war. We're winning politically. MAGA candidates are storming the gates. Matt Gaetz is winning. Why would anyone in their right mind be like, well, I guess I better go do something crazy? Certainly, that's not what this show would actually inspire someone to do. In the meantime, what do we actually have? Far left extremists in Atlanta with sharpened tools and weapons, gas masks, were
okay. So he's turning the topic, changing the topic.
I don't think that is
there
the
is
message.
Well, I mean, if you are making the money that he's making in his compound, and you are doing so because you are such a great communicator, don't you have to ask yourself, like, why is it that there's multiple people now who are citing my show as being an inspiration for these acts that I supposedly say are completely antithetical to what my project is? Doesn't that make you say, like, maybe I'm screwing up in some fashion?
Also, he knows that he hasn't been doing the whole "we're winning" thing. Everybody relax and just do a civil.
Hasn't he talking about a year ago? He was talking about race wars and civil wars, and
the grooming of children is not stopping. People are calling for more violence. I do not think legislators will stop the grooming. People will not stop calling for violence. You tell me what happens next.
When was that?
That let's see here. That was around. It doesn't say it on the. Yeah.
Oh, 2022? You mean right around the time that this guy perpetrated this attack? Huh.
Yeah, this is November 2022 there.
Oh, we're winning. We're winning.
Not exactly that we're winning. Everyone just trust your representatives. Liar.
Total liar. And it's also sort of fascinating to, like, I watch that segment. I can't tell who he's saying is lying. Is he saying the guy on the witness stand is lying, or is he saying that it's media
a narrative
is lying?
lie? It's the same thing with that thing with Emma and the abortion thing he called a hoax. Like, who is actually doing the hoax here? Is it the media? That's the way that they're covering it is a hoax,
Right.
and the actual thing. He's a liar.
I think it's slightly nebulous, but I will say from the title of the video, it says Pelosi attacker DePappy testifies. Media blames Tim Pool, James Lindsay, Glenn Beck, and Gamergate.
But again, like,
so I think there's a potential that he's saying. That
Well,
the media
it's
basically
easier
made
for
it
him
up.
to say,
But he has to say
just,
that.
he has
what
to,
he's reporting is that the guy said it.
It's clouded. Right. The idea that the media wouldn't have reported on his testimony, regardless of if he said James Lindsay and Tim Pool, because I got news for you. Normal people don't look at, like, the LA Times and ask a question about Tim Pool.
Yeah, the grooming of children is not stopping tweet. That was, the month after the attack. His entire output is like, there's going to be a civil war.
Totally. Totally. Calling from a 646 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
That sounds like you're talking to me.
I am.
I'm calling from New York.
And what's your name?
This is Josh.
Josh from New York. What's on your mind?
The same thing that I think is on everyone's mind. Israel-Palestine conflict. My parents live in a West Bank settlement, and I grew up Orthodox Jewish. I left that when I was 23, and since then it's been a long, long journey of deprogramming and reprogramming. And
how old are you now?
41.
Okay.
And on my journey of self-discovery, the final personal conceit that I had to give up was Zionism. It was very deep-rooted, and it was as recently as 2021 that I really turned that particular bit around. that I think that eliminated the last little bit of regular cognitive dissonance that I find in my life on day to day. I wake up now and the world pretty much makes sense. It stinks, but it makes sense.
That's fascinating. Tell me about that process. I mean, there's got to be two different processes that are going on, and I have I have a friend who came out of like a fundamentalist upbringing, and there's still sort of like modes of thought that exist, but then there's also sort of like the content buckets of that thought. I mean, talk about like what was it that. How did you perceive? Did you perceive yourself as a Zionist per se? Would you refer to yourself as a Zionist, or just this is a set of beliefs?
Up until it became clear, like what the fundamentals of that movement of political Zionism, at least, are, I couldn't apply that label anymore. But up until that point, it was the Zionists are the heroes, right? Like that is just how it is. Zionism is the bravest of us all, you know, and that's a lot to work through.
What was it that I
just want to make clear for anyone listening, like I'm pointing out like what I'm taught, not what I believe currently.
Right. No, of course, and I understand that. I'm older than you, but like I remember, like people go look at like a clip of Exodus with Paul Newman, and like there was a heroism, and the ideology, to the extent that there's an ideology here, there is of Zionism, has changed over the course of 140 years, let's say, that it has existed. And
frankly, Zionism has hijacked Judaism at this point. It's to the point where it's been infected by the European imperialism, and it is white European Jews that dominate Jewish culture outside and inside Israel. And there are Jewish communities all over the world that have been decimated by the actions of Israel and the eroding of the goodwill. There are arguments to be made that there are Arab Jews from around the world for 100 years who have suffered because of Israel and have been drawn to Israel because of their actions, where they have then been abused and treated as second class to the white Jews.
I certainly feel that my ability to identify and experience Judaism is is under threat from Zionism in a way that I think is
Absolutely.
like that I don't know, has been more sort of a latent feeling, over the past, I don't know, 10 years or so, but it's obviously come more to the fore. But what was it for you in 2021 that made you
just the outbreak of violence at the time that I was receptive to it, most likely due to the point I was in my journey, in addition to the pandemic and isolation. That's when the violence happened. That's when I was ready to hear it.
And what kind of stuff? What kind of stuff did you read or learning from? I mean, like what was? Tell us a little bit about that journey. And again, I imagine there's sort of like you come out of like a fundamentalist worldview. There's a lot of things that are sort of almost generic to being in that, to having that type of worldview. But then there's also sort of like the content. So I imagine your journey has involved both those things on some level.
It required me to have developed a lot of fundamental values, beforehand. Like I don't believe in bad people, only broken people, for instance. You show me any antisocial action or any person that has done anything wrong, and I will find a way to define that as something is wrong with them and we should help. And I needed that and other values such as that. And I needed the framing. And I needed the pandemic, to be frank. You know, it was there. I needed that state of mind. I needed a lot. And then the violence erupted. And I was ready to see the truth for what it was. And I honestly, the final question, if you want to know like what the precise turning point was, I asked myself the question, if something came up about, you know, oh, AOC hates Israel or whatever. And I asked myself, I said, why is it that everyone who I agree with on everything disagrees with me on Israel? and I needed real answers to that. I needed to know why. I didn't need comforting answers. I needed the real answer. And the real answer was that I had been lied to, unfortunately.
What's your relationship with your family at this point?
It's fraught.
Right.
I talk to them as much as I can summon the energy to, which is bad because that's not often enough. I have never felt more alone. My entire family is either Orthodox Jewish or at least supports that worldview. And actually that's something I wanted to point out. Like, I have found Jews of every walk of life, unaffiliated Jews, conservative Jews, Reform Jews, Hasidic Jews, Haredi Jews, who are found on the right side of this issue, on the correct side of this issue. I have not found Orthodox Jews, mainstream, jeans and t-shirt and pizza eating kind of Jews who had the same jobs as you and, you know, spoke the local language growing up. And the only difference is that they wear a kippah, you know, and they keep Shabbos. Like, I can't find those Jews who say the truth, who recognize that the founding of the nation, like from the first Aliyah in the late 1800s, those immigrants were found to be mistreating the Palestinians severely from the beginning, from the start, and it has only gotten worse since then.
Why do you think? Why do you think that is? Like, when you saying these are Orthodox that are not part of a specific sect, I mean, or they considered more modern Orthodox?
Like modern Orthodox Jews, the ones who are indistinguishable from your average New Yorker, except for the fact that they've got the kippah and you can't reach them on Saturday.
Right. Those you find to be the most conservative.
That's my people. That's who and they are, to a man, essentially have their identity conflated internally with political Zionism.
Interesting.
It's all I was fed from the start, because, like, you know, my parents are boomers, and, you know, so they were born shortly after the establishment of the state, so they got fed it, you know, very strongly, and then they passed that on.
Right. Yes, I understand that dynamic. I wonder what it is about the modern Orthodox movement that would be that would be so, you know, and again, it's only your perspective, but you're in that community. But that
there's so much generational trauma behind this, right?
Right. Yes, but that generational trauma theoretically could also exist with Reform Jews. It could exist with conservative Jews, Reconstructionist Jews.
It's how we deal with
Haredi.
it.
Yes,
it's how we deal with it. I like to say the universe breaks us all. It's you know, how we rebuild ourselves that matters. And my community, the one that I grew up with, which I have been alienated from for so long, built themselves up into an image of what they hated, unfortunately.
Fascinating. I appreciate your sharing the story with us, Josh. You know, hang in there. I know particularly when people leave any type of sort of like fundamentalist type of community, there's a tremendous amount of feeling of isolation, particularly from their family.
I have relied a lot on my found family.
That's good. Well, I'm happy for you. Good luck, and thanks for calling. If you have any more thoughts, don't hesitate to call.
I appreciate your time, and everyone else's too. Thank you.
Thanks. Calling from a 631 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Kyle from Brooklyn.
Kyle from Brooklyn. Getting a lot of New Yorkers today. I've never heard of 631.
It's a Suffolk County number.
All
I've lived in Brooklyn for, 13 years, but still have that from growing up out there. Anyway, I wanted to just share a little bit about what's going on in Germany right now, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, there's a whole bunch of things, and I don't know if you've followed at all, but today the CDU and the CSU, which together are kind of like the center-right coalition in Germany, Merkel's old party is the CDU, the CSU is their Bavarian kind of sister party. They're introducing a bill to implement an anti-Semitism test for prospective citizens. I haven't seen, so this is being debated, and I haven't really seen descriptions of what this test, bureaucratic test, is going to look like. But there's pretty open discussion about how the state can go about deporting people who are deemed dangerous anti-Semites. It's pretty shocking, frankly. And this is happening against a background not just of the Hamas attack and then the ongoing Israeli bombardment of Gaza, deaths of over 10,000 Gazans right now, but of kind of worsening or a sharpening of migration politics in Germany. And so this moment is really being used in Germany, but I think in other European states too, to this focus on Israel and Palestine, and in Europe a focus on anti-Semitism, is being used to kind of advance a pretty sick migration agenda or anti-migration agenda. So, if you want, I can send some suggestions on people who might be able to talk about that for you guys. I wanted to share that.
That's fascinating. It becomes a surrogate or like just some type of fig leaf, essentially, from trying to inhibit immigration.
Yeah, it's a mix of things. In Germany, it goes deep too. It's like, kind of demonstrating a commitment to fighting anti-Semitism is pretty important for,
right,
I would say, the German political class in general, and also lots of Germans, just average Germans. So that is part of it, but
they're super woke there.
In this moment especially. Say again?
They're super woke.
Yes, very, very woke. Very woke.
Is there a German word for
wokeness? Some of the
wokeness?
wokest right-wingers you will ever meet. No, people use the English word over there. It's kind of...
In France, they say wokism.
Kind of strange.
Too, it's funny.
Okay, yeah, no, exactly. It's a similar thing in Germany. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, send an email with any type of suggestions you have. I appreciate that.
Will do.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for all your work, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Such great callers. Pressure is on. You're calling from a 513 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this me?
Yeah, it is you. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, cool. This is Batty from Cincinnati.
Batty from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Were you aware that rhymed?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Good.
Anyway, so I was calling in today because I do some organizing and stuff out here in Cincinnati, real small time stuff. But pamphlets are still pretty popular here at coffee shops and stuff. People still leave like little zines and things with different ideas like poetry and stuff.
Cool.
So I was thinking about, I was listening to that Future Hindsight show that you've been advertising a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about like maybe alternate frames of leftism that might work better in the Midwest. And I called my friend who's a right-winger, and I told him about this idea, and he was like, that sounds a lot like objectivism. So that must mean that I'm sort of on the right track.
There you go. Yeah. What is it?
Okay, so I call this idea benefitism. I'm trying to write up a pamphlet on it, and I'm going to try and leave it at some coffee shops and see if people are interested. But I think like a bunch of Midwesterners basically there's a lot of skepticism and sort of disengagement with the voting process, especially like younger Midwesterners are totally checked out, even people who have strong political beliefs. Like we had an issue that was going to pass here in Cincinnati. I think there are about 1 million people who can vote in the city, somewhere between like 500,000 and 1 million, something like that, who can vote here in the city. And there was going to be a charter amendment that was permanently going to allocate $50 million a year to build government housing. So it was just going to be like socialist utopia. And I think the turnout numbers were around 25,000 out of those, 500,000 to 1 million voters. And it was something like 35 to 65, maybe 30 to 70% loss. It's just such a huge disengagement. It's a huge problem. And when I'm knocking on doors and stuff and talking to people about issues like affordable housing, I think that disengagement is a huge issue because people can't get around their cynicism and stuff. Maybe Matt's like familiar with that because I know he's from North Dakota. Well, I lived in Iowa for a long time. It has the same kind of vibe.
I think also, I got to tell you, I think broadly speaking, that dynamic exists in the country. I mean, it may be more intense in those areas, over time, and people have given up. But broadly speaking, that dynamic exists everywhere. It's part of the reason why when people have asked me in the past, like, do you really think it makes sense to preach to the converted? Like, yeah, it does. Because people like these things. They just don't think that they can come about. So, yes. But it's interesting. Okay, so that is an amazingly low turnout. The idea that you could turn out, we do videos on a regular basis where more people watch than if they that could have like completely turned the outcome of that vote, and then that would be huge. So tell us more about this benefitism. Is that what you're going to call it?
Yeah. So I think the idea is to get away from political parties, which might be especially effective in a city like Cincinnati, where the Democratic Party has 100% control over everything, but they campaign against like all the affordable housing amendments and stuff like that. Like a big thing they did is they sold, owned by real estate. Like we had like a 100-mile municipal rail line that they just recently sold to, Northrop Southern or whatever. I always get the stupid name confused, but they're owned by real estate. Okay, so the idea behind it is to basically empower voters by giving them easy internal metrics for sort of like aiming at what their goals should be when they're voting. And the idea is basically to evaluate the different issues that you're voting on and the candidates you're voting on purely on material benefits, which I think at first sounds kind of like a little bit nonsense or maybe kind of like a trivial thought to have. But a lot of voters around here feel super disempowered, and they feel like, well, why would I vote for this person who's just going to like sell our railroad at bottom dollar to like all these real estate magnates? And I think if you could get people excited and say like, hey, you really don't need to worry about that. These guys are basically con artists and stuff. All you need to figure out is that some people can provide you with material benefits, and some material benefits are better for you than others. And you should go out and vote for the ones that benefit you personally and not worry too much about the rest of the politics. I think it could get people really engaged, especially on something like affordable housing where everybody's really excited about it, but nobody's really excited to vote because there's a lot of depressed turnout.
I mean, what you're talking about in practice is not terribly different from a lot of leftism that I think people preach. But I think there could be value in, particularly in areas, like when you're talking about things like referendums and whatnot, and particularly in areas where the people, there is a bad stink around, the people who might be more likely than others to provide it, to just go right for that. I think I don't know, it seems like a good idea. How are you, when you put the flyers around, how are you going to measure, what's your metric for success?
So I think I'll put some personal details if people can email me and things like that. And yeah, I'm friends with like the precinct captain for our local DNC, and there's like an organization in Ohio called League of Women Voters, and I was knocking doors for them for issue 1. So I can sort of like poke people and maybe do some like direct advocating. But I think my idea is that for a lot of people, especially around here and in similar areas, if you could get like maybe, and this is a huge overestimate, but even if you could get like 3% of the people in Cincinnati interested in feeling motivated and thinking like, oh, you know what? I just need to figure out what's in my best interest and vote for that. And I'm not really going to worry about the local politics outside of that. In these downstream ballot initiatives and for these downstream candidates, it could really change the political landscape of the Midwest.
Why not, instead of just having people email you directly, why not have them, give a sign up for an email, the newsletter that maybe you would put out once a month?
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that.
And then you can also put your email address in the newsletter so that people can have direct conversation. But if you can get a sense of whether people are interested in this idea, and then, once a month you send out like a 1-page thing. Maybe it points out the issues and when you have an ability to sort of like increase involvement or engagement, you have a mechanism in which to reach these people.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because I think one thing I was thinking about is that the Democratic Party puts out they spend a lot of money putting out confusing mailers and things like, and I think it's partially just because like these solutions aren't perfect. That's just the reality of it. Like the city spending $50 million a year on housing isn't going to perfectly fix the problem. And it is going to pour some money into some developers' pockets, which sort of, I think, gets people frustrated and sort of anxious because they don't want to lose what they have to, some program that's not easy to grasp at its base. But yeah, I think being able to reassure people and say like, oh yeah, there are other people out there who are really interested in this. It's going to help your community regardless of what the DNC says. Yeah, I think that could have a lot of weight. That's a good idea.
Put on the flyer a way to sign up for the email and say, we'll never sell your email address and we won't spam your inbox, but we'll give you an update as to what we're doing, once a month.
Yeah, I think, cool. I mean, where I've seen this be successful is, particularly St. Paul, slightly less so Minneapolis, and it around things like housing, housing equity now, all sorts of keep St. Paul home, different sorts of groups, basically wanting ballot initiatives around things like rent control and that sort of stuff. Now this city council controlled by neoliberals aligned with Fry in Minneapolis particularly can undermine that a bit once it gets to actually legislating it and instituting it. But I think that, as you say, focus, but I don't think you want to focus. I think focus on a specific thing instead of a general philosophy about that. And I like housing particularly is necessary now. I don't think, I think probably making it too general in the that beneficialism. I think you want to focus on an issue and build a list of people that are aligned on that one issue, and then you can build that out, would be my guess.
I guess the only thing I'm afraid of from just meeting a lot of Midwesterners and having lived all over, I really like volunteering in communities and stuff. I just feel like I talk to a lot of people. And I feel like there's just a lot of people, maybe they're sort of disengaged, and the only exposure they've had to any sort of political organizing is some streamer who's full of shit, maybe Destiny or something. Or maybe there's they have a friend or something who's always talking about it, so they're kind of burnt out. So I kind of want to just give people something that feels personally empowering too, which is kind of why I'm trying to. And I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this too. It's you can't really talk to people about socialism because there's been so much of a history of Red Scare around here. They're just going to get freaked out.
You know what? I mean, listen, I think there's no, you can easily, what they call A/B this, right? Try it. I would try it. And the only thing I would just prepare for success. That's the only point with the newsletter thing, is so that you can have the ability to sort of keep the conversation going and get a sense of like what it is you're presenting and how well people react to it. So I would definitely try what you're talking about, and if that doesn't work, then or even if it does, try Matt's tactic and making it more issue specific. I don't know. You have you clearly have the desire and the energy and a sense of what the problem is, and so you have the ability to try a couple of different solutions and see which one works.
Yeah, and the other bit of advice I give is I think you can leave socialism or any of those sort of words out, but I think appeal to people as workers as opposed to just voters, because I think that isn't very convincing either. But those are just my instincts.
Interesting.
Good luck with it.
All right,
Give us an update.
Go.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, one last thing for Cincinnati voters is that there's a meeting for issue 24, which is our affordable housing issue, on December 9th. You can just Google it.
Okay, great. December 9th. Appreciate the call.
Thanks. Bye.
Batty from Cincinnati. I may impose you got to rhyme. You got to figure it out. Whose anti-Semitism should we highlight for today? Because they all seem to get the same memo.
Who's besides Charlie Kirk?
Tucker.
Oh, right. I haven't watched that Tucker Candace thing yet.
Let's do Tucker's. The call has gone out, ladies and gentlemen, for I don't know, to take a step forward. I really wonder what's going on with this. It almost feels like a business proposition. There is, it's a very difficult time because there is no doubt that over the past 4 or 5 years, there has been a marked rise in anti-Semitism in this country and, frankly, in many respects across the globe. There was a marked rise, I think, in the past, decade in terms of racism in this country. And, I think we all know that the anti-immigrant sentiment has been huge over the past 15 years. I think we all know that the reason why these are related is because the Jews are pulling the strings on all this. Or wait, I'm sorry, is that the trope? I don't know. Let's check with Tucker Carlson. He'll tell us. I'm sure.
That's what's also happened is that people that
I should also say he's with Candace Owens, who is seems to be mad because she's not getting the defense that she wanted from her boss about like her Hitler stuff. And I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the right-wing media world. And
she's also taken a look at polling that shows that this isn't very popular. Israel, particularly right now, isn't popular. So combine her being unsatisfied with the defense she got when she tried to defend Kanye West, saying his Jewish doctor was part of a cabal to suppress him. That has come to her basically saying Israel shouldn't bomb Palestinians.
Also, I should also say this. Back in the day, in the early aughts, mid-aughts, when I would go on MSNBC, when it was still a right-wing channel, Pat Buchanan would have me on when he was filling in for Tucker, who had a show. And I knew always that Pat Buchanan would have me on because he knew I would be critical of Israel. And he was happy to have that as a, and I only did it once or twice because I started to feel creeped out about it because I felt like, wait a second, are we talking about Israel here? And I just remember being at the DNC in 2004 on Radio Row talking to some right-winger who didn't understand what Air America was because nobody contemplated the idea of left-wingers. And he goes like, I'm not like those, Bush types. I'm with Pat Buchanan. All those Bush types are all Jews. And I was like, okay. But I should just,
it's a big tent over there.
I just raised that because that brand of paleo conservatism is what Tucker Carlson espouses.
We're going to see that again. Bring that back.
The police. And I think in terms of this, that's what's also happened is that people that are pro-Israel are pro-Israel, a lot of them, because they have family members in Israel.
I get it.
They
I
have
get it.
homes in
Yes,
Israel.
yes.
And so they feel very attached to this issue. And, you know, I was very happy to host somebody who was pro-Israel. He's a pro-Israel comedian on my show the other day. And I explained this to him. I said, you know, you are demanding that we have this same response that you are having about what people are saying on college campuses. The rhetoric on college campuses hasn't changed. Did you not remember what they were saying, what professors were saying, the anti-white explicit racism that was happening, and not even just allowed in terms of student protests, but was written into the curriculum at these universities for years. People were learning this actively in school, that whiteness was associated with wrongness. You had college professors that were writing about this need there need to be less white people in America. You can find these articles. They exist online.
They're everywhere.
They're
And
everywhere.
that seems genocidal. I mean, if you're
It
saying
is genocidal.
like by definition, if you're saying being a certain ethnicity or race is itself a sin and we need less of you, I mean, that is the definition, is it not?
Right. It was an understanding of needing to breed out white people. It was unbelievable what I was seeing, and I was impacted by it because I'm in a biracial relationship and I have biracial children. So you are telling me that my children are going to have to decide between whether or not they are white oppressors or they are Black victims. It doesn't stand for me. So I was attached to this issue, and it's something that I fought for hard on college campuses, and there was no support. There was nobody talking about, well, this is what needs to go. These kids need to go onto blacklists. And by the way, if they did speak that way, I would have disagreed with it because I am pro 1A. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe that kids, by the way, are naturally stupid. In case people forget, I started on the left, right?
Yeah.
So if you found me in college, you would have found a pro-life person who believed, in some racist principles, fundamental racism in America, because that was what I was being taught systematically in the classroom. And then I got to grow up and change my mind. And I don't think people have thought past their immediate emotions to consider what's going to happen when you put these kids on blacklists. You think that's going to bring them over to the pro-Israel side when they get older? Most of these kids, especially when you're talking about the cream of the crop at these Ivy League universities, already have access to money and wealth and connections. And so maybe debating the issues and explaining to them why it was wrong to sign this specific letter, which didn't call for explicit violence against the Israelis, but it actually was very poorly timed, and it blamed them for what happened, which would have been horrific. Imagine after 9/11, somebody issues a letter on college campus and says, oh, well, sorry about the fire department.
I agree.
Yeah,
I get why donors are mad.
Imagine,
and by the way, I support donors giving money to things they agree with.
Yes, I support that.
I strongly do.
Yep.
The part and so I had no problem with that at all. You don't like it, don't pay for it. Good for you. However, then I thought, well, wait a second. If the biggest donors at, say, Harvard have decided, well, we're going to shut it down now, where were you the last 10 years when they were calling for white genocide? You were allowing this. And then I found myself really hating those people, actually. That you're okay with that? On what grounds were you okay with that?
And this is what I've been trying to explain to the pro-Israel lobby, that what you are seeing as lack of support is people that are asking the question is, where were you as we have endured all of this?
You were paying for it, actually.
Right.
You were paying for it.
You were paying for it.
You were calling my children immoral for their skin color. You paid for that.
And
so why shouldn't I be mad at you? I don't understand.
And so that is, obviously you have a ton of white people that are asking this question, and they're now being called anti-Semitic. And I think that that's wrong. I think these are meaningful questions that deserve to be answered. Why was this sort of verbiage allowed into the curriculum? I mean, could you imagine if in the curriculum it said that every Jewish person born is a terrorist? This is systematically what has been said.
I just tell you that there is no place in the curriculum where it says every white person is born.
I'm a white guy who got a master's degree. Yeah, that's not really, when people talk about whiteness, it's usually in the structure that prefers certain ethnicities as opposed to others in the context of a settler colonial nation that, again.
Yeah, I mean, but this is important. I mean, I know it seems, like so ridiculous that you to go through that, but the idea that you cannot teach about what group of people and how that have maintained a dominant power in a society and how they have maintained it. And it just so happens to be that these people are white. There could have been an alternate universe where whiteness was not it, but it isn't. It didn't happen. History happened the way that it happened. And the idea that there is any curriculum that is teaching there is something intrinsic about white people,
we need to genocide them,
that is problematic is absurd. what there is curriculums that are looking at the distribution of power in our society and beyond in other societies, and how that power was managed. And it's been managed, at least for several centuries, through the prism of whiteness. At least within the context of the societies we're talking about. Not obviously universally, but I mean, depending on the year, I guess. But that's what it is. But they boil it down to they're trying to demonize my white children, because what their agenda is to build anger at non-white people, and particularly non-white people who are not feeding the notion that there's something problematic with this stuff. I mean, that's what Candace Owens, she serves that purpose.
Well, and really, like, this idea that they're not upset that there's any sort of like censorship. They're mad that they didn't use their influence through donations to suppress speech for the last few decades.
Right. They're complicit. He's saying these donors are complicit. Doesn't he get into it? They're Jewish too, right? These donors, does Tucker get there? Okay. So there's this idea that there's these donors who are funding this stuff. And if they had a problem with it in the past, i.e. Black Lives Matter, they would have pulled their funding then. So it's not, the issue isn't that they have a problem with people pulling the funding now. It's that they didn't pull it then.
They blame Jews for the George Floyd protests.
And here's Charlie Kirk sort of really singing the same song about this. He plays a video of a stop anti-Semitism sort of PSA. And then he goes into this, which is like the extension of what Tucker and Candace are saying.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
This person, the artist formerly known as Eric. Quote, okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I am deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest swear word, let's just say tiniest crap, now about Western Jewish populations, coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them too much. You want truth said to your face? There it is.
Okay, now pause it. I should just say, Charlie Kirk is reading off a tweet that Elon Musk responded to. I don't know if he quote tweeted it, but he responded to by saying, like, this is all true.
That's so correct.
And, or that's so correct. And what this tweet is saying is that, like, it was similar to what Tucker and Candace Owens were saying, which is they didn't say anything before. They sort of nurtured this anti-white stuff, and that's this is what you get. But here's Kirk going further.
Now, let me just say, this is not a very well-written tweet. It's very confusing. I'll go through what they're basically saying here. Half of this tweet is true, half of it I don't like. You want the truth said to your face? There it is. Elon responds, and he says, you have said the actual truth. Now, we don't know what part Elon is saying is the actual truth. So let's go through this. Again, it's double negatives and misuse of the word disinterested. It's a strange tweet that Elon pinpointed on here. But the first part is absolutely true. Let's go to this. Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. Now, I don't like generalizations. Not every Jewish person believes that. But it is true, the Anti-Defamation League was part and parcel with Black Lives Matter. It is true that some of the largest financiers of left-wing anti-white causes have been Jewish Americans. They went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country that have done that. In fact, we have seen this with the recent retreat of Jewish donations that are no longer going to be administered to colleges, right? Mark Rowan, Leon Kopperman. Can we get that full list? It's very powerful. The part of the so that's totally
Can
true.
we
And by
get
the way,
that
Tucker,
full list that we've compiled of Jews? It's very powerful. This is really, this is Charlie Kirk just picking up the mantle from Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, just going a little bit farther with it. And of course, Elon Musk went all the way. But continue. Let's pull up that list of Jews who have been funding all the black stuff, but now they're upset because they're coming.
Yeah. It's not like any of that stuff. Like, for instance, looking at this country's racial history or the way it treated women or whatever. It's not like there's any sort of organic demand to study that sort of stuff. It must come from the dastardly donors.
The number one, maybe not number one, maybe number 2 or 3, prominent dynamic in white supremacy thought, full-on racist. I'm talking KKK, I'm talking neo-Nazi stuff. They must reconcile the question, if black people are so inferior, brown people are so inferior, why are we competing with them? Why do we have to compete with them? Why are we not easily dominating them? And the way they reconcile that question, this is throughout KKK neo-Nazi ideology, is because the Jews are manipulating things to use the blacks, to use the immigrants as a way of defeating the white people. That is classic racist, full-on racist, hardcore racist sort of algorithmic stuff.
Protocols of those of Zion.
There you go. And so that's what's going on here. When they say these Jews were funding all the BLM stuff on these campuses, this fits in very nicely into this sort of like mold that the KKK, the neo-Nazi ideology has constructed.
Jewish Americans, they went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country that have done that. In fact, we have seen this with the recent retreat of Jewish donations that are no longer going to be administered to colleges, right? Mark Rowan, Leon Kopperman. Can we get that full list? It's very powerful. The part of the, so that's totally true. And by the way, Tucker Carlson reinforces this. So I'm going to kind of, it was quite a day on the internet. Tucker Carlson was interviewing Candace Owens. We have Candace Owens coming up next hour. And Tucker Carlson mentions that Jewish Americans have primarily been financing cultural Marxist ideas. We said this, by the way, last week, and people came after us.
We were on top of it.
We actually said it in a different way. We said, I'm glad that Jewish Americans are reconsidering their financing of cultural Marxism. And people misunderstood it intentionally and slandered us as being anti-Semites. But listen to this. Tucker Carlson is completely correct by saying this, that the philosophical foundation of anti-whiteness has been largely financed by Jewish donors in the country. Play cut 92.
There you go.
Insane.
There you go. There you go.
It's John Birch all over again.
Totally. They've come home, ladies and gentlemen. They have come home. And this isn't just Charlie Kirk in his basement. Like, his radio show is broadcast across the country.
I mean, this is basically the follow-up to the Candace thing with Tucker. And I'm sure she didn't correct him on any of the more explicit ways he said that versus what she said on Tucker.
This is what's happening. And it is, it's really difficult to fight through this stuff right now at a time where people who want to justify the right-wing authoritarian government in Israel's attacks on innocent civilians by conflating that act with Jews or being Jewish or Judaism. It's a real problem, and so people need to be, sort of like, I think, doubly sensitive to what they're hearing, but also have the capacity to sort of like filter out other things that are being conflated. Really, really nasty time. Star Fox, Sam, anyone in the Boston area should check out the Slut Cracker at Somerville Theater. It's a body, gender, sexuality positive burlesque performance of the Nutcracker where every character is a consenting adult. They put it on almost for 20 years now. It's a fun time. And of course, thank you for all the 100th time, the love, support, donations, and everything. Hard to be a doomer when this community is so amazing. Love you all. Left is best. And Scalia's ghost. Honestly, let the fascists keep exposing themselves like this. Yes. Oh, yeah. We don't have time for one more call. Sorry, folks. That ends the call-in portion of the program. Did our best. Tater tot. Small note for Matt. Minneapolis' recent local elections were only for city council, but the results swung the balance towards the progressive side. They recently voted down a last-minute proposal by Frey to increase cop retention with bonuses.
Thanks for the update. I forgot about that.
400 blowing me. Sam, why has the Biden administration not kept the tone on Israel they had after the attack on the 7th? That following week, they urged Israel not to make the same mistakes the U.S. did after 9/11. Now they're basically saying Israel's right to make the same mistakes. It's frustrating. I don't know. I mean, I think it's coming from...
Because if you keep saying it, then it looks like they're defying you. Like, they have to have it mesh somewhat with what your client's doing.
I also think that maybe just like Biden or somebody somewhere, because, the State Department came out with stuff like urging restraint within the first day or two. And I think it was just a question of people presumed that this was our policy because why wouldn't it be? And I don't know. I don't know if it's just a function of Biden. I don't know if it's a function of advisors. I don't know. But it feels like it really was the apparatus was ready to call for a ceasefire.
Blinken literally tweeted it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it didn't, this is not something that's emanating from state, right? It's coming from somewhere else.
Which, I mean, I feel like Congress and like the different sort of representatives in Senate and Congress that I'd rather support Israel more than our State Department would. I mean, Mearsheimer talks about that in the Israel Lobby, which is a book that does have a lot of problems, and Tony Judt and Norm Finkelstein both have reviews that you should read about that. But it's often the executives, like I think Jimmy Carter goes into, like Jimmy Carter wanted to take a more aggressive stance, but Congress is like, nah. Reagan, that was about Reagan. Reagan wanted to take a more soft and hey, control yourselves a little bit, and Congress overruled him.
In this instance, it feels like Biden is leading Congress. It just feels like that, just based upon like the narrow set of people who are coming out. That's my sense. Emmanuel Goldstein says Hakeem Jeffries' uncle is Leonard Jeffries, who along with Francis Wessling, espoused black supremacist anti-Semitic hypothesis. I think this was used against him in his early political career. I think this influences his policies, his politics. Very, very possible. Militant apathy. Is that really happening? Are Jewish Americans en masse rethinking their support for civil rights? No. They're just no. They're still all in on the white genocide. It's just that they...
He's talking about the rich Jews that they have on a list that give to universities.
Yes. Who were just probably didn't want to be seen as pulling their money over BLM, but This is something different.
I don't think they were giving money to do BLM and CRT. I think it's probably just because they were alumni.
Exactly. All right, 10 IMs, and then we're out of here. Ben from Ohio. Bear down, folks. Thanksgiving is less than a weekend away. Remember, for those dinner table arguments, you don't need to be a scholar of Palestinian studies to oppose the indiscriminate massacre of civilians and bombing of hospitals and evacuation routes. I can't even begin to describe to you what I am anticipating at my Thanksgiving. Catfish Jones. Man, Joe Biden sounds great, huh? I thought about that too. He's not whizzing through this stuff. Dave from Jamaica. Conservative love servants, just the civil ones. Fill government with failed daughters and sons seems to be the plan. Holy crap, I didn't know about that, about the Nutcracker. Granted, only watched one time as a kid. Oh, yeah. Shofar button. Block their PP. Draconian anti-Semitism laws and tests will just further inflame people's resentment towards Israel and Jews. Dave the Red. Hello, crew. It's the I am formerly known as custodial artist. I'm leaving the custodial arts behind for a new and higher paying job. Hi, Bumbler left his best. Sam, don't forget that it's Eastern Orthodox Christmas that the Nutcracker takes place in. Interesting. Turkey, the straw donor. Very strange reporting last night on the local CBS News about Eric Adams cutting the school budget using the disingenuous excuse of asylum seekers. They had a representative of the teachers union on to react, and the news anchor just shouted at them that, yes, the refugees were the problem. Very disturbing that the media is so complicit in carrying on lies from corrupt politicians such as Adams.
Hacking the library budget, too.
Yeah. Thank you for the daily sanity check when it feels like everything is getting more and more absurd and unhinged. Left is best. Well, it is. I don't know what to tell you. Jobby Boonier, for the love of God. Oh, I already read that one. A function of Sam. Could I get a shofar for a great show called The Majority Report? Everyone there really rocks. These particularly hard times, I think they really deserve it. Thank you. That's very sweet. We'll take it. 3 more. Really cool. APAC, DMFI pledging $100 million this upcoming cycle. Now's a good time to show your War on Christmas MSNBC clip. We'll do that probably Tuesday. John from Colorado. Tim Pool is an inspiration to me in the sense that seeing Tim Pool inspired me to work very hard in order not to become anything like Tim Pool. And the final I am of the week. Hi, crew. Hope Eric Adams fries, but we all know how the FBI gets in cases like this. I just found out libraries are closed for the weekends. Their budgets were cut so low that their purchasing and construction has to take a hit as well. Also, that only higher-up cops see the benefits of their budget increases, but their crime scene force has a small team for all 5 boroughs. Horrible. Bradley, Matt, great job today and this week. Emma, great job this week. Hope you feel better on Monday. Dorsey Shaw, my sister Julie, John Aarons, Maria and Chris and Isaac, Kelly. Great job this week, folks. We'll see you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid.